Hey, Chris Manning here with the Locked On Cavs podcast, joined for a very special draft episode. We're getting so close. We got Rafael Barlowe, founder of NBA Draft Junkies, one of the hosts of the Locked On NBA Draft podcast. We're here today to talk about Evan Mobley. Rafael, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Nothing much, man. I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good. Are you? How are you doing ahead of the draft? Are you people that maybe follow you on Twitter? We talked about this before we went live about how much stuff you've been doing. But today, as we're recording this, people will probably listening to this Thursday or Friday, or watching this on Thursday or Friday. We're getting guys announcing that they're going to stay, that if they're going to go. The draft is getting closer and closer and closer. Just how has this process been for you? Kind of in a pandemic adjacent, let's say, draft process.
It's been crazy, but it's been self-inflicted crazy, if that makes sense. I set this lofty goal of trying to do 100 prospect videos for this draft class, and I've been cranking them out. If I can keep up the pace of 2 a day, I should reach my goal right before the draft. I was helped out a little bit today, which I still have a little bit of time left, but a few of the guys have decided to return to school. So that has, eliminated at least 5 names for me. Like Marcus Bagley, for example, for one. There was somebody else that just came out. But yeah, that helps me out. But yeah, it's a lofty goal. Each video that I do, the process is like 3 hours. And so between just doing regular stuff that I need to do to make ends meet and these videos, I've been putting in some long days. So I'm looking forward to July 30th.
Yeah, I think everyone is extremely excited to get through the draft and get it done. I think teams especially are just kind of like, okay, like we're ready to move forward. I mean, Summer League comes so soon after that, which is the other thing about the summer that I think is going to be weird. I don't even know how many of these guys we should expect to even play just because of the turnaround and everything like that. We'll kind of see. But one of the guy we're going to talk about, as I mentioned, is Evan Mobley. Before we get into him and his fit in Cleveland, perhaps, and all of that, where is he on your board? And where does he sort of fall compared to some of the other top prospects in this draft? Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, etc.
Right now, I have number 2 on my board. So that if it goes in order, then you just miss out on him. Which in this year, I think, if you miss out on Cade or Mobley, you still have a guy that could possibly be the number 1 pick in another year. But yeah, man, I like Mobley. I think that he fits the modern day big, and I feel like he has the ability to just kind of be a game changer. And I think as far as like with Cleveland, I think it'll be an interesting fit if he ends up falling to Cleveland by any chance.
Yeah, I think it seems like Cade's obviously going to go 1. There's some smoke out there that like maybe they love Jalen Green. Maybe they're gonna take it's the Cavs and the Pelicans and the Thunder, among some other teams of all I know, inquired about going up to number 1. I don't know what the cost of that would be, but there is precedent for that historically. The Fultz, what became the Fultz Tatum swap in essence sort of set the template for that. But I think whoever, if it's one of Green and Mobley at 3, I think either of them sort of present some interesting roster questions for Cleveland as they're sort of building out. Obviously, Mobley, you have Jarrett Allen, who you acquired for a reason because he's very good. He's headed into restricted free agency. He's going to get some kind of massive contract. Like you would assume he's going to get some kind of big deal, maybe $18 to $22 million a year range. You can quibble if he's worth that or not. I tend to think that he is. Then you have Jalen Green, who is another guard who needs the ball and scores. And you have 2 guys. You've built your quote unquote foundation right now around 2 guys that need the ball a lot, that need to figure out what they're going to do off the ball if they're going to succeed. Green would sort of be another mouth to feed. You could question, I think, either one of their fits. But to me, it's like I think if whoever ends up at 3, I think I would just take them and not really think. I mean, I don't think to me, and I don't know nearly as much about this as you or Richard or any of the guys that are doing the shows in our network are, but like. I just think like those 2 guys, I think you just can be very, very happy with either of them at 3. And Mobley in particular seems just like such a unicorn is like an overused term, but he seems like such an original, unique kind of building block to do something real interesting with. If he ends up in the right situation, he gets built up the right way and things kind of break from him. He just seems like such an interesting guy. And like, I think if he's there at 3, I think you just take the card in and you don't even think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to do your due diligence.
Well, right. You're gonna like look at Scotty Barnes. You're gonna look at Suggs. You're gonna look at Kuminga. It just it doesn't seem like those guys. It just seems like it's gonna go Cade, and then like whatever Houston does at 2 is gonna kind of dictate what Cleveland does at 3 to some extent right now. That's what it feels like from my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, either way, the Cavaliers go. There's going to be some redundancy. You know, you
Yeah.
take a guard, whether it's Cade or Green, then it's like you're taking a guard for like what is it, third time in the last 4 drafts.
Yeah.
You take, if it's Mobley, then there's redundancy there because Jarrett Allen has definitely earned the right to, he paid $22 million or maybe more, maybe less. So it's it's like a good position to be in, and it's kind of debatable depending on how you see it. Are the Cavs in the position to go by the best fit, or do they just go by the best talent? And it sounds like you're more so leaning towards whoever the best player is. We'll figure things out later.
Yeah, and tell me what you think about this, but my sort of thought process here is like the Cavs are not very good. Like they can tout like, oh, we had a top 10 defense for a stretch last year. Like, oh, like we were in the play-in hunt for a little bit, blah, blah, blah. This is the team that finished with like the 26 net rating. They had like multiple double-digit losing streaks. Like this was not a very good basketball team for a lot of reasons last year. I think there are pieces on this team I really like. Like I think Allen's good. I think Garland is on his way to being something really, really interesting. I'm a big, big believer in Isaac Okoro. But, like this team, what is going on with Kevin Love? He is not providing you exactly what you would hope he would at this point, right? Like Dylan Windler looks like a miss. The Kevin Porter Jr. situation played out how it did, and now he's obviously no longer part of your plans. Like this isn't a team like overwhelming or overflowing with really interesting young talent right now, and I just don't think they're very good. I would not be picky if I were them. Some people have also argued like, okay, like should they to avoid redundancy, should they like trade down and get the 2 Magic picks or get the 2 Thunder picks or whatever? I don't really even think that. I would just, if you're at 3 and you're in a top 3 of this draft, and the idea that the way that these guys seem to be viewed, whether it's Green, whether it's Mobley, it just seems like these are potential building block guys that are a step above what you have now. And it's really hard to get those guys. Like, and maybe Green doesn't work out that way. Maybe Mobley doesn't work out that way. I just sort of think you have to swing at that if you're in the top 3. If you were a little later, maybe that's another question. Like maybe if you're at 4 and you're like, I don't, we don't love Barnes, we'll take 5 and 8 or 5 and a future pick or something. Like I would be more into that. But 3 just feels like a spot where you can take a swing on one of these guys that also can provide you with stuff that you need. And then you just kind of like figure it out in a year. And like, I think you could probably trade Jarrett Allen if he's making $20 million a year. There might be a market for Collin Sexton once his number kind of gets figured out or something like, or maybe it's Garland. Like you have some ways to manipulate the roster, I think, and you shouldn't be like forcing it. My preferred outcome if I'm them is I would trade like 1 and a future pick to get up to 1. And I don't know if I'd go more than that, but I would try to get the Cade conversation and then like let him make sense of the rest of your roster, because the other 2 guys don't really do that. Cade could do that if it kind of breaks correctly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everything you said was spot on, and I mean it's a tough choice for who's ever going to have final say in the decisions. So like I said, there's going to be redundancy there, and how weird of a summer would it be if you extend Allen but then draft someone that plays the exact same position? But even like I have mentioned on a previous podcast that if it's Jalen Green, how do you justify telling Collin Sexton, hey, I know you averaged 24 a game this year or something like that?
Yeah, like and he's been pushed as like the face of the franchise for a couple of years. Like there's that.
Yeah, so how do you tell him like, hey, I know Jalen Green hasn't done anything yet. We drafted him high. He's our starting shooting guard, and we're gonna try you out at the 6-man role. And I think, by him being so young, not saying he's immature, but that's a lot harder for young guys to accept, especially when the team hasn't been winning. I can see if it was like a team that's been in the playoffs. So it's going to be some interesting position battles going into training camp.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's take a quick break here and tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at BetOnline. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NHL, and all of your UFC/MMA action. before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their runs to the playoffs. Head to their website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with the promo code LOCKEDON. BetOnline, your online sports book experts. This week on Road to the Finals, well, I guess we're at the finals now. Our finals coverage is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it, and at 2.6 carbs and 95 calories, we can all enjoy the games a little bit more this season. Suns in 6 remains my pick. All right, Rafael. So I think about Evan Mobley, and I guess like my big question with him is like, can he play with Jarrett Allen? And I do not know enough about him. I don't frankly I think I have an answer to that. I don't know if you can have a definitive answer on that. But if Kobe Altman called you right now, was like, hey, I want your take on can these two guys coexist? Can I play him at the 4, make him my kind of quasi backup 5, and kind of build with this sort of Twin Towers alignment? Is that a realistic thing for Mobley to do at the next level?
Oh man, that's a tough question. And it's tough because all right, long term, I think it's best for Mobley to play the 4 because he's still light. He's still pretty.
He's 200 pounds. He's very skinny. That is and Allen's not exactly 8 and big either, but Mobley needs to hit a weight room and put on some muscle to withstand some of the brunt force coming his way in the league.
Yeah, so I agree 100%. So short term. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the Cavs, if it's in their plan to make the playoffs next year, or is it try to win now or develop guys? And then the Kevin Love situation is still kind of weird. But let's say Love is out the picture. I think you can play Mobley and Mobley and Jarrett Allen together. Maybe start them together, but then kind of stagger their minutes so they both get time after 5. I think that you kind of have to bring him along slowly, kind of like how Anthony Davis, who, in my opinion, is a 5.
He will tell you he doesn't want to play the 5. That guy's a 5. He's a 5.
Yeah. But early in his career, I think he was around the same weight and size as Mobley. He played the 4. I mean, the NBA is a lot different now than it was in I think 2012ish or 13, whatever his rookie year was. But yeah, I would start them together, and I would just kind of stagger their minutes. And then go from there to see how if they play together, if you need to move one. I mean, we've seen the Pacers kind of have to do the same thing with Evan Turner and Sabonis. I think both of them are 5s, and they've had to come up with different lineups to where you find a player that complements both of them. And I that would be my strategy early on if I'm Cleveland.
So what Allen, I think, is, let's start on the offensive end. I think what Allen is on offense is he sets screens. He has a little 16-foot jumper, but his main utility in offense is vertical spacing. He catches lobs. He will get some putbacks. He has a little quick baby hook he takes, but he's pretty much a straightforward kind of specialist in offense in my mind. I want to see how he develops. They've hinted at him taking 3s. They've talked about him wanting to at least get more comfortable doing DHOs and kind of at least having a little bit of playmaker responsibility. But if I'm looking at Mobley, it seems like the playmaking part of him would actually sort of be an interesting complement to what Allen is, kind of cover up for some of what Allen does. But A, is that fair? And B, what else does Mobley provide on offense that can make him a functioning partner with Allen?
Well, one, you mentioned the passing, and I'm curious to see how Mobley plays in space. He played with his brother this year, and obviously they have plenty of chemistry. They probably
yeah.
But USC for the past 2 years, they've had a traditional 2 big lineup, and we saw it with Okongwu last year. So I think that Mobley has the potential to be a really good floor spacer. And I've even seen some people say that they think he has the skill set to be able to steal some minutes from time to time at the wing. Now that's debatable, but I think you can run some very interesting lineups or even just plays. I could actually see them running some 4-5 pick and rolls because I think Mobley is that type of passer and he has that type of skill set. It's just a matter of I think the coach being creative and finding ways to make things work. Spacing may be an issue early on. I know at one point, I want to say his last year in Brooklyn, I saw Allen was starting to shoot threes, especially in the corner, and then it just seems like he stopped after that. I don't necessarily want to see him all of a sudden try to develop into a floor spacer,
Right.
but I think Mobley has a better chance of becoming a floor spacer. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a long-winded answer, but I would play them together and then just kind of see how it works out. And best case scenario, you have Sabonis and Miles Turner situation, which a lot of people may say that doesn't fit either. But I think Cleveland would be fine being a floor
Yeah.
team.
Well, how many? I think we forget sometimes in like the broader quote unquote NBA like discourse is that like how many situations are actually perfect? You know what I mean? Like how many situations are like without flaws, without like things that coaches are stressing about that GMs are trying to fix via trades or free agency. Like there's no perfect situation. The way that this sort of works out is like you get a LeBron, you get a KD, you get a apex guy, and then they like solve your issues for you because they're that good. And like otherwise, you're trying to cobble together solutions. Like, like if you to use the Indiana example, like the reason they fired Nate McMillan, which looks stupid now, but they fired him because they wanted to bring in someone that was going to maybe modernize their offense and run some stuff to kind of maximize it and maximize the two guys. And Bjorkgren was a Nick Nurse disciple. Like you can understand the thought process, even if it obviously blew up in their face. Yeah. So that happens. I don't know if like JB Bickerstaff is like the coach that I think is. I like JB as a coach. He's by all accounts like a very good human being. Every interaction I've had with him is good. He's been a leader in terms of the Cavs, in terms of their public facing persona in everything that's happened in the United States last year. And like that stuff cannot be overstated in terms of how important it is. I think you need to find like an assistant for him though, that is going to come in and like maybe help take some of the offensive creation duties on if you're going to get two kind of unique chess pieces with this. And then like if Isaac Okoro like doesn't improve as a 3-point shooter, then like, I don't know exactly what you're supposed to do when like your three isn't spacing, or a guy who might play some small ball 4 isn't going to space for you and isn't going to be a consistent shooter. That if that doesn't round into form, like his whole trajectory as a player changes. Is Mobley going to be able to, in your mind at all, shoot threes at the NBA level? His percentage, if I remember correctly, was not particularly high last year at USC.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like the touch looks good. Like when you watch his film, he has good touch around the rim. But if you look at the numbers, he shot 30% from 3 and even 69% from the foul line. But for whatever reasons, and maybe it's just the eye test alone, everyone is projecting him to be a really good shooter. But the numbers don't necessarily say that. The 70% is not bad. The 30% from 3 is, it's not bad. It's not great. But at the same time, I mean, I just think that he has a high upside. He's so young. And again, like he has the touch around the basket, and that usually translates to being able to extend the range. I think he'll be a more reliable shooter faster than Okoro. I mean, that's not really going out on the limb there either.
Yeah, I mean, Okoro is like I'm all in on him, but it's also one of those things where it's like you could tell me he's never going to shoot better than like 32% from 3, and I'd be like, yeah, that kind of tracks. He's kind of muscular. He's not exactly like a fluid. He's a very like bulky kind of fullbacky athlete more than he is like a fluid kind of dynamic kind of guy. Yeah, I mean, like Mobley took 43s in college. Like that's not a lot. That's not really a lot to work on, and that's why like for years now, people that are as you said, like free throw percentage is sort of a better indicator in a lot of times than like raw 3-point percentage in college. I also gather that like the system he played in at USC wasn't exactly like doing him any favors. Like Suggs, I know, goes to Gonzaga in part because that's such a modern offensive system, and they had a lot of very, at least potential NBA guys, and Kispert's going to be a first-round pick or whatever. Like, it doesn't seem like USC for Mobley was exactly like allowing him to maybe be as comfortable as you would think he might be able to get on offense. Is that a fair read as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair, but I also know that like part of the reason he went there was to play with his brother.
Yeah.
So, if you're the coach, you may sacrifice, the best fit for him to get him there.
Yeah.
I thought on one hand, him and his brother complemented each other because there were some passes that they threw where you're like, okay, that's they got some home cooking going on
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
But I don't think it necessarily maximized his entire skill set, which the numbers were good, and I mean he's going to end up being a top 3 pick at the worst. So it's kind of hard to say, well, everything was a maximized, but I think he has more skill than he was able to show. But like I said, I mean, I'm buying into it based off the eye test as opposed to what I see on paper. And I'm usually 50-50 on that, but I'm hoping I'm right that, the shooting projects and the range will be able to get extended soon. If it doesn't, then it's gonna be tough with Okoro because I mean I like Okoro. I feel like he's most valuable on a team that's winning, that already has everybody in place. And for a team like Cleveland, I think it's kind of hard to like for Okoro to really like show his value because I think he's a role player.
Yeah.
And I mean I understand the reason why he was drafted where he was drafted, but I think if you put him on a team like Golden State, where I mean he may cause some issues there as far as their spacing, but you already have the stars around him and the pieces, and he can just be that disruptor on defense, that switchy guy, and you have enough offense around him to where it can offset his lack of offense. And I
Hmm.
think Cleveland right now they don't have enough, and he may make things a little bit more difficult for the other guys, especially if they're looking to make the playoffs. I mean, I think in a playoff setting, let's say they end up being the 8th seed, which would be a win for Cleveland. But
Oh, and they're absolutely going to try and do this. Like Kobe Albin's job probably depends on him making at least the play in tournament next year. So we'll see how that goes.
yeah, but I think that's when he becomes a real liability in a playoff setting, unless he improves. I was hoping that he would improve as a shooter this year. There was such a super ridiculously long offseason last year, and the numbers still weren't good. But the one thing I will say that I guess I did like is he was a little bit more confident. Like at Auburn,
Hmm.
if he was open, he passed it or he would hesitate. I feel like he kind of let it fly a little bit more this year. I mean, again, the 29% wasn't great, but it's weird because we're kind of down on Okoro as a 29% 3-point shooter, but at the same time praising Mobley for shooting 1 percentage point
Right.
better. So
Yeah, and I will say I think Okoro did like better towards the end of the year, and they asked him to do more. But like sometimes the end of the year stuff gets very junky, and it's like the Cavs are out of it by then. Sometimes I don't know how much of that stuff really carries over, and teams will tell you the same thing. All right, one more break. I want to tell you about our friends at Built Bar. Look, there's a limited time flavor this week. It's Built Bar Grasshopper Cookie. It's available only through July 9th, so get the new Built Bar flavor Grasshopper Cookie. What does it taste like? Well, this is the Built Bar version of the classic Thin Mint cookie. The one you buy from the Girl Scouts at the grocery store. It's awesome. All the flavor without all that sugar. And you may be saying, "Oh, like isn't there mint brownie already?" No, it's literally got cookie pieces in there. It's an awesome protein bar. 150 calories, 17 grams of protein, only 5 grams of sugar. And look, if you don't want to try that, that's okay too. There's a ton of great flavors, including cookies and cream, German chocolate, salted caramel, and cherry barcia. You can try a mix box if you want to get 2 of each of the 9 main flavors and try them all out. All of these bars have 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. I'll order Grasshopper Cookie today or get the raspberry or whatever you like. And Built Bar is the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. Isn't that neat? Go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at builtbar.com. All right, so what do you think about Mobley on the defensive end with Jarrett Allen? How do you think those two as a duo? And again, as you alluded to, you're going to stagger them. You're going to probably find like cobble together some minutes at the 4 with like Taurean Prince and Dean Wade and whomever else. But how do you view them as a potential starting duo, potential maybe closing duo as well as a 4-5?
defensively,
Yeah, defensively.
oh yeah, I think defensively they could really be disruptive to some offenses because Mobley is, I guess, his biggest asset. I think as a defender is his fluidity and his ability to switch. I think we already know what Okoro brings to the table as far as being a physical defender, a guy that's not afraid to kind of junk it up and mix things up. And then Allen's a shot blocker. So I think defensively that could possibly be the identity. It's just we're in an era where no matter how great you are on defense, you're gonna have to be able to score the ball. I mean, we look at Philly. Philly had Embiid and Simmons, two guys that are probably top five, I think, in defensive player of the year voting. You had Thibault, who's a great defender. So you can make a case and say Philly had three of the top 15 defenders in the NBA. Let's say three of the top 20. And it only got them in the second round because I feel like they just did not have enough offense. A lot of that could be blamed on Ben Simmons.
Yes.
But I think that with Okoro and Mobley and Allen, I do think that helps as far as giving you a defensive identity early. It's just whether or not they're going to be able to manufacture enough points on offense, or you're going to heavily rely on Sexton and Garland again.
Yeah, it's a lot of creation responsibility to start, at least on Garland, and he's a smaller guard, and like he's I think taking big steps, but that's still a harder thing to do. That's like where the Jalen, I think Mobley is sort of like kind of got to be clearly the two, it would seem, like, guy in this draft, but like the appeal of Green is that he's like a big wing, and like that is how so many of the very best teams are building. Like even if it's like Donovan Mitchell and he's a little smaller, like you're getting these scoring perimeter threats to do that. And there's some redundancies obviously in Cleveland. We'll see what happens with Sexton and everything, but Mobley also just seems like a guy that you could do some real interesting stuff with if you get. I think like an inventive coach would do some really interesting stuff with him, and like I think like Nick Nurse would be, for instance, like it doesn't seem like that's on the table, but like that could be a real interesting fit with him. Steven Silas in Houston probably also has a better, more detailed offensive track record than JB Bickerstaff does at this point. And they also have the same concerns where it's like they have Christian Wood and they already have given him a contract. Like, do they want to go Mobley and Wood? And when, Green's right there, but then like, I know Kevin Porter is a little bit not the same level, but like, is there Green Porter redundancy in terms of what you're building in the backcourt? Like, I think both these teams are interesting spots in that regard. Before we kind of go to like a quasi mock here, are there any defensive concerns with Mobley? If you're playing him at the next level, projecting him out, are there major defensive concerns with him as a prospect?
Yes and no. I think if you play him at the 4, you're able to hide some of those concerns. If you play him at the 5, and he's going to get ate alive by Embiid. I mean, I imagine Embiid probably outweighs him by 80 pounds.
Oh yeah. And I'm just like imagining like someone like Isaiah Stewart even just like barreling into his chest, and like that's an Allen concern I have too. But it's like Mobley's rail thin, and he's gonna take some shots like that. It's looking ahead, but it's like I have this mental dissonance with like watching Chet Holmgren play, because I just assume someone's gonna break him. Like Ben Simmons is going to drive the lane or something, or like LeBron's going to barrel into him and he's going to snap in half because he's so thin. Mobley is extremely not that lean, but he's lean for a 7-footer.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one reason why I think that you have to keep Jarrett Allen. I don't feel like if you just make Mobley your 5 and you give him the keys as a 5 from day one, I think he's going to struggle simply because, like you said, it's easy to think about your Embiids or your Aytons or, the high level guys. But when you mention a guy like Isaiah Stewart, who's just going to, be physical, or you think of guys like Tristan Thompson, for example, somebody who you're very familiar with, a guy
yes,
is probably going to be able to get 5 offensive rebounds because of his strength, and he's got that big old butt, and, just outmuscle him. So that would be my concern for him on the defensive end. As far as being able to switch and stay in front of guards for 2 to 3 seconds, I don't think he's going to have too much of a problem there. He has the instincts, he has the agility and fluidity and coordination, everything that you want out of a switchy defender. It's just you're just going to have to wait until he packs on some muscle and some weight for him to really be able to maximize his whole defensive potential.
Yeah. So let's do a little mock exercise. I think we assume Cade. Let's just say the Pistons keep the pick. Mm-hmm. Cade's going 1. They may not say that right now, but it seems like Cade's going to be the number 1 pick. Who do you like for Houston at 2? If Mobley, you have said, is your number 2 guy on your board, do you like Mobley at 2 for Houston?
I do. Actually, I had mentioned on Locked on Rockets that I was in Miami last week, and when I was in Miami, the gym that I was getting some content for a guy that's entering the draft, was Christian Wood and DJ Wilson there working out, and then Coach
Mm.
Sykes happened to pop in 2 of the days I was there. So I had a chance to ask him what he thought. Of course, he's not going to give me, a direct answer. He switched
Yeah.
question back to me and was asking me what was my opinions on them. But it was the same thing. I've mentioned that either way you go, there's a lot of, you know, redundancy there. And I said, it just depends on, and I guess this is you would know better than me. It just depends on how much confidence they have in Kevin Porter Jr. One, long term as a person, two, as his role. Like we
Mm-hmm.
started to see him play like the primary ball handler role at the very end of the season. Again, it was like April and May. Don't know if that's going to be something that they'll do long term. Do they feel like he's the primary ball handler? If you feel like he's the primary and he's going to play like a Harden role for you, then Jalen Green could make sense there. You still have John Wall on the roster, who's also working out in Miami. So to answer that question, I think it's Cleveland and Houston literally have the same issues, in my opinion. But I think the Rockets are going to go with Mobley,
Okay.
and then I think Jalen Green ends up in Cleveland, and then it gets interesting on day one of training camp.
Yes. Would you, if you're Cleveland, which one of those do you guys think off the top of your head do you think is an easier fit for them? Is it Mobley or is it Green? It seems like Mobley might just be easier to fit in if you can just like get Kevin Love to take a buyout, right? That just might be healthier for everyone in my mind. I'm kind of just thinking like just break up, like let's just end this and not worry about this anymore. It seems like Mobley might be a little bit of a cleaner fit if you're Cleveland and kind of building out your roster, not trying to maybe have to have like it just seems less uncomfortable, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I feel like Houston is in the same position with John Wall. Like he does
Mm-hmm.
not match their timeline. And to be honest with you, the pick for Houston that could make the most sense if they could trade. Let's say they can work out some type of trade and draft Jalen Suggs. Then you could have Suggs, Porter Jr., and Wood, and then you can have. I think that kind of balances out better and ends a lot of the redundancy. I don't know if they're willing to trade down, but maybe there is something that they can work out with, let's say Toronto, where they, throw in a player, they move down a couple spots. So in my opinion, I think that if you go with Mobley, you'll be better defensively, not as great on offense. But if you go with Jalen Green, I think the Cavs offense could end up being pretty dynamic. And you have Okoro and you have Jarrett Allen, who I think are plus defenders, so that could make sense there. But it just depends on what you do at the four if you end up going with Jalen Green.
Last thing, Rafael, thanks again for all the time. Would you trade down if you're Cleveland? Would you consider a trade down to like 5-8 or with Orlando or like a Thunder trade down?
So if I'm Kobe Altman, is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, man, I'm saying like Dan Gilbert has decided, Rafael, you're the new GM. You like somehow have a connection to Michigan State that I've found from your third uncle removed. You're now the general manager and president of basketball operations in Cleveland. What are you going to do? Are you trading down?
How many years do I have on my contract?
Look, you're gonna get paid for 5, but you might get 2, but you're gonna get all the money, and ultimately, like what, you're profiting at the end of the day anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to honestly. What I would do is, I think I would draft Jalen Green.
Okay.
And I think that I could probably find a good suitor for Collin Sexton. I do not want to bring those two in camp together.
Okay.
I think it is too hard. I mean, yeah, if I'm trading him, that doesn't make it easier, but it's too difficult to bring those two in the camp. I just can't see that being good. They may get along, it could work, but I would select Jalen Green. I think I could probably get something good in return for Collin Sexton. I think teams like Dallas could use a score. I don't know what Dallas can bring you back in return, but I think there's value for Collin Sexton. I think there's enough teams that are playoff teams that could probably use that type of, instant offense score. So I see what I get for him. I'm definitely trying to move Love. So I guess I would go with Jalen Green because I think it's kind of, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. I think that Mobley could be like an Ayton type, or if he's your third best player, you're gonna be really, really good. I think Jaylen Green could be your best player on a good team and be that superstar.
Yeah.
And I guess that now it's kind of like, all right, would you rather have Luka Doncic or would you rather have DeAndre Ayton? I've seen a case that said if they would have taken Doncic, then they wouldn't have been able to get Chris Paul, and they may not be where they're at today. So,
but they'd also have Luka Doncic and Devin Booker, which is like not a bad alternate reality. So
So yeah, that's probably what I would do. I mean, I think, for example, Miami would love to have Collin Sexton on their team because I struggled scoring. So I can find a piece there.
Would you do a Hero Achua for Sexton swap if you're Cleveland? That's been like a floated thing.
I definitely would.
Okay.
I definitely would. Yeah.
Even after watching Tyler Hero throw punches.
Oh my goodness. You saw those uppercuts?
Bro, I mean, those arms are long, I guess, but look at my guy. Come on. Don't post that to the social. Let's just take an L's.
Scooping dog.
Rough. Oh God, yeah. Okay, this is gonna be fun. I can't wait for the draft. I can't wait to see what the Cavs do. They might do something weird. Who knows? Rafael, give everyone the plugs of where they can find all of your work.
Well, first of all, thanks again for having me on. So,
anytime, brother.
Yeah, hopefully, like maybe right before the draft or right after the draft, we can do this again.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me on Locked On NBA Draft. My show is every Monday and Thursday. You can also find me at Barlowe 500, BARLOWE 500. That is my Twitter handle. And NBA Draft Junkies. So whether you go to the website or to the YouTube channel, if you want to see like video breakdowns of some of the prospects, that's where you can find them. I have this ridiculous goal of 100 videos between now and the draft. So if you like watching breakdown videos, they're short. I mean, a lot of guys now have these videos that are like 10 minutes long and 13 minutes long. Mine are a little bit concise, so they're about 5 minutes. So like I said, if you like watching those video breakdowns, that's where you can see some of my work at.
Look, I'm just saying, as an Ohio University alum, you can see the helmet. I'm waiting for my 2-hour Jason Preston video, so I'm ready.
Jason Preston was one of the first videos I did.
Okay, I'm gonna go rectify that mistake. Watch it, and I'm gonna talk myself into the Cavs like spending like $5 million to get a second-round pick to take him or something.
Because he decided to stay into the draft, so that could possibly happen. And
it worked.
He would be a perfect fit.
I did not pay him to say this, but I love that you said this because this is what I want. I'm gonna buy whatever jersey he ends up doing, just frame it on my wall. But like him in a Cavs jersey, I'd annoy the shit out of him with the questions I would ask about Athens, Ohio. It was a wonderful place. Rafael, thank you. Everyone, thanks again for watching if you're on WKYC, and thanks for listening in if you're listening wherever you get your podcast. Evan and I will be back on Monday. Have a great weekend. Talk to you then.